Are the ADL's anti-Semitism stats credible? From the Listening Post. Let's take a look.
ADL is in the news and on the front lines. The rejection of anti-Zionism and anti-Israel sentiment.
The Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, says its annual conference is the world's largest summit on anti-Semitism and hate.
Wow, 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 wow.
The event is a showcase of the pull that the ADL has.
Thank you, ADL, for the work that you do for all of us.
It's one of the most well-funded and best-known NGOs in the United States. Its summit takes place in New York, where the ADL is headquartered, and big-name speakers from politics, entertainment, and social media come in for a turn at the podium.
Yes, never is now.
Leading the extravaganza is CEO Jonathan Greenblatt. He's been the frontman of the ADL for a decade, and he's a frequent voice in the media.
Joining us now is Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League.
Thanks so much for being here on this day.
We see Jonathan Greenblatt on cable news programs with such incredible regularity. You would think there's nobody else available.
What do you think these social media platforms are supposed to do? What's the responsible thing to do?
He's ubiquitous.
Trump had me doing Gestapo shit for a foreign country. How cuck can you get, OMG? I don't think it's just for a foreign country. It is being implemented at the behest of a foreign country right now, but I think the purpose of this is more nefarious than what you think is going on. This isn't just Donald Trump being cucked to Israel. This is what is otherwise known as a trial balloon. They're trying to see what they can get away with. There are already plenty of homegrown institutions that have spent a good deal of time and capital on persecuting and maybe even simultaneously prosecuting people that have ever spoken out against Israel. Trump is just simply using this existing network of otherwise liberal-oriented organizations. That's it. But if you think the goal is to simply silence just pro-Palestinian speech and never move the existing framework to whoever is against the Trump administration or against the growing fascist movement in this country, you are wrong. The same exact trial balloon principle was utilized when in the lame duck proceedings in the last Senate session, in the last Congress session, the Democrats, alongside Republicans, voted for a bill that would give the Trump administration's Department of Treasury powers to declare any 501c3 that they wish to do so a terrorist organization and remove their 501c3 status, their philanthropy status. If your 501c3 status is removed, you can no longer get donations because they're no longer tax deductible donations. It will greatly limit the amount of fundraising you can engage in. And the Democrats, because of their insane pro-Israel attitude, without any care or consideration as to how the Trump administration was signaling they would use this expansive power against advocacy groups, turned around and voted for it. The 501c3 killer bill. Why did they do that initially? They did it because they thought, oh, they'll go after all the pro-Palestinian groups. And because the Democratic Party loves the state of Israel, they didn't even think about the other repercussions that might come out of this, especially if this awesome power is given to the likes of Donald Trump. They didn't realize that it was go after Act Blue, for example, you know? No, they didn't think about it, I promise, which is why they went back and, with public pressure, refused to vote on it, even after they had initially voted in favor of it. That, to me, is a really great demonstration of the nearsighted, idiotic nature of the Democratic Party, especially in the House of Representatives. That also, I think, shows perfectly how Trump will and the Republicans will utilize pre-existing, preset organizations and liberals entertaining the notion of like attacking pro-Palestinian groups in a way to get even more power. They will start by saying, oh, we're just going after anti-Semites. Who's an anti-Semite? Anyone we've decided is an anti-Semite is an anti-Semite. Anyone who's ever said anything about Israel is an anti-Semite. But they won't stop there. This will be the new McCarthyist trials. That is what they're gearing up for. And anyone who doesn't recognize that, even if they're pro-Israel, anyone who doesn't fucking recognize that is an absolute moron, especially American Jews. If you're an American Jew and you support the state of Israel so much so that you are celebrating decisions like this from the Trump administration, I'm letting you know, maybe in the interim, it'll be people like Mahmoud Halil that get deported or get falsely prosecuted and persecuted and will face severe criminal repercussions unjustly. Maybe the next step will be people like myself, Twitch streamers that you don't like. But if you think that you are safe, you're the dumbest person on the planet. You are so stupid if you think as a Zionist Jew in the United States of America that eventually these exact same institutions and the exact same abuse of law that you are currently championing will not come around and first arrest, apprehend, and prosecute your immediate relatives for the crime of being anti-Zionist, and then you for the crime of being Jewish. You're a moron. This has nothing to do with actually defending the Israeli state, and everything to do with everything to do with creating a network to apprehend and persecute people for demonstrating speech you don't like. It'll be far too late at that point, too.
It's partly because he gives the media what they want.
Disturbing rise of extremism. Israel's a country that faces relentless terror attacks. I worry about this every day.
Every time he comes on, he's speaking about a crisis, and that language is appealing to the press.
Anti-Zionism, I've long said, is anti-Semitism. I was wrong. Anti-Zionism is genocide.
Jonathan Greenblatt is a very well-connected
Anti-Zionism is genocide. TOS at 255. Thank you.
Political operative. And he's riding this wave of the ADL's name having unwarranted credibility with the media.
And if you wouldn't tolerate it, if someone's wearing a swastika on their arm, I'm sorry, you shouldn't tolerate it if they're wearing a keffiyeh.
Yeah, he made a comparison between a swastika and a keffiyeh, dude. Freak. I just... Civil rights organization, by the way. Freak.
All right, Jonathan Greenblatt, thank you so much.
Greenblatt suggested that tolerating people wearing the Palestinian keffiyeh, a basic symbol of Palestinian culture, that is tantamount to tolerating people who are wearing swastikas. He speaks very...
For those of you who don't understand, there is no moral equivalence between Nazi Germany and demonstrating your support for Palestinian emancipation. Jesus Christ.
Very authoritatively and confidently, but he uses that confidence to aggressively weaponize the charge of anti-Semitism in order to silence any criticism of Israel.
We wrote to the ADL for a response to this characterization of its work, that the organization and its CEO label criticism of Israel as anti-Semitic. We didn't get a response, and that didn't come as a surprise. Greenblatt has made clear what he thinks of Al Jazeera's output.
The Al Jazeera effect. So pumping propaganda 24/7, across people's cell phones.
Yeah, the propaganda is simply showing people unfiltered what Israel is doing to Palestinians, by the way. That's the propaganda. The propaganda here, okay, he's using it as a pejorative. One of the few outlets that genuinely shows what the Israel is up to. That's what's so unimaginable. That's so unacceptable.
On their television screens.
The ADL was founded in 1913 when waves of anti-Semitism were sweeping across Europe and the United States, and just 3 decades before the rise of Hitler in Germany. The ADL now calls itself the world's leading expert.
There was TOS, I skipped it.
On anti-Semitism. On its website, the organization lists its activities, and its studies on anti-Semitism have become a fixture in American media.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, the main question here is, are the ADL's anti-Semitism stats credible? The answer, unfortunately, is no. It is supposed to be the premier and perhaps one of the most important organizations to combat anti-Semitism. And with all of the esteem that they have, they've basically squandered their reputation, what remained of their reputation, and are completely insane. Why? Because they are one of the most vicious, overt bullies that actively undermines their status as a civil rights organization by routinely conflating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, as Jonathan Greenblatt did here. And their audits literally are just like, anyone that is wearing a keffiyeh, someone who said free Palestine, someone who said from the river to the sea, Palestine should be free, regardless of whether they're Jewish or Christian or Muslim, Arab, Palestinian, doesn't matter. When you do that, yes, you'll get these incredible reports about anti-Semitism exploding. And the irony, of course, is that anti-Semitism is exploding in the United States of America. That's what's so crazy about it. So at a time when a real institution that tracks anti-Semitism is needed the most, the ADL is squandering that reputation that they previously had by actively using it as an offensive weapon of propaganda and greatly exaggerating the anti-Semitic incidents by tacking on pro-Palestinian sentiment into actual audits of real anti-Semitic incidents, all while simultaneously defending real anti-Semitic incidents like Elon Musk ripping the Sig Heil.
Big increase in anti-Semitic behavior in Florida, that according to the Anti-Defamation League.
You have just finished a report, the ADL has, on how many incidents we saw in 2018. We're at historic numbers.
It is horrible what is happening. I know that you are tracking more incidents.
A troubling new survey from the Anti-Defamation League showing that anti-Semitism is on the rise in America.
The ADL does document anti-Semitic incidents, and many of the incidents they document are genuinely anti-Semitic. For example, people being harassed for wearing kippot in public. But especially recently, a lot of the incidents that they've documented as anti-Semitic are
That's what's so crazy about it, bro. Like, how do you betray your principle of actively logging, combating anti-Semitism by just like so overtly and so openly being like things that every Americans agree to and understand, virtually all Americans understand, that are also correct, by the way, like Israel doing a genocide is correct. Simply repeating that correct statement, being considered anti-Semitic, is psychotic. It's dangerous. You're giving credibility to anti-Semitic statements by directly associating correct statements that are shared by many Americans as though they are anti-Semitic. It is insane. Maybe because they kill babies? What? Yeah, okay, dude. This is what I mean. And then the outcome of that is people responding to that and being like, okay, well, they're saying, Jewish people are saying, baby killing is a part of the business here. Jewish people keep saying Israel is the Jewish nation and everything Israel's doing is for Judaism. And then they turn around and say shit like this. If you actively think that you are, dude, this is why I always make the ISIS comparison. It's like if there were American institutions designed, like American civil rights organizations designed to like protect Arabs and protect Muslims, running around and being like, ISIS is actually the true Islamic caliphate. It is an Islamic state. Why can't ISIS develop an Islamic state? If you criticize ISIS, you're actually Islamophobic. If they were doing that actively and you had, Jake Tapper and the like regularly defending ISIS, Americans would be like, what the f are you talking about? Okay, well, the Muslims are insane. And I'll explain it further because they falsely made that conflation. Media falsely made this conflation, claiming that ISIS was true Islam. This is the true nature of the barbaric Islamic hordes. They actively did that. Why did they do that? In an effort to justify the war on terror. Oh, it is ridiculous.
Are actually just protests for Palestinian rights, including protests led and organized by American Jews.
What they do with their data is consistently conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, and that conflation.
Are they just dumb or are they just paid by Israel? Yes, of course the ADL is paid by Israel. What do you mean? He literally goes to the Israeli Knesset and gives speeches about how the real war must be fought on the propaganda front and we must do more Hasbara in the West. Like, yes, this isn't even dual loyalty tropes and shit, okay? This is straight up like out there. A lot of these organizations directly get grants from the Israeli Knesset. That's what's so crazy about it. They're not designated as foreign lobbyist organizations, weirdly enough. They'll always say like, oh, well, these are Israeli Americans or these are Americans that are funding it. Well, the Israeli government is funding it too. What do you mean it's not a foreign organization? It's a foreign nation. The are we doing? Sexy Sam Cedar, constructive criticism. You need to allow your beard to gray out. Wear a simple colored shirt. Wear clear colored glasses. Have shorter grayish hair. Thoughts. Okay, you want me to be Sam Cedar. I can never be Sam Cedar. I can try, but it won't happen. I wish I could be him, but I can't. There's only one Sam Cedar.
Gives them much wider room in order to weaponize that spear in a way that is really effective.
The anti-Israel groups on campus are planning a week of rage. I can't think of anything more grotesque.
Yeah, that was so funny. Yeah, dude, they were doing a day of jihad. Yeah. It's just crazy, man. Zionism truly is a mental disorder. I swear to God. I mean, it's a fascist ideology inherently. So it makes sense why it would also have the impact of like a real, genuine, existing mental disorder. Because no matter what your background is, okay, when you get drip-fed, unrestricted Zionist propaganda, you become this person who's like, yeah, they're going to do a day of jihad. They're going to do a day of jihad. They're going to do a week of rage.
Than these pro-Hamas groups.
There's no question, of course, that there is a rise in anti-Semitism in the United States right now. But when you add every pro-Palestine rally that is taking place in the country, numbering over 1,000 events in their statistics as anti-Semitic incidents, we no longer know what the real statistics are. And when you add on top of that the fact that so much of the instances that they recount are confidential and they don't disclose any details about them, it is difficult for any outside party to really discern whether that data is accurate or not.
And by amplifying and uncritically reporting on the ADL's claims of what does and doesn't constitute anti-Semitism, the media is complicit in diverting attention from the real threats of anti-Semitism, from the anti-Semites in the cabinet of the Trump administration, and instead focusing it on 19-year-old activists who are being deported out of this country.
We've begun the process of deporting foreign terrorists, jihadists, and Hamas sympathizers.
The Trumpian political movement, which counts white supremacists and self-confessed, quote, Jew haters amongst some of its most ardent supporters, should be a clear point of focus for the ADL's critique. And in the early years of Trump's first term, that was the case.
While it's a bit...
Is the genuine rise in anti-Semitism because of the conflation between Israel and Judaism? Yes, that's one part of it. And a very big part of it, actually. Absolutely. And Jonathan Greenblatt, Jake Tapper, Dana Fash, and many others are contributing to that problem by literally showing what Israel is doing and saying, well, there's contextualization and justifications for the baby murder that you're watching unfold in front of your fucking eyes. And also that if you have any sort of opinion on this baby murder being inappropriate, you're fucking anti-Semitic. What the fuck do you expect people to do after all that? You're like, okay, I guess I'm anti-Semitic. Let's continue.
Bit unclear what the president was trying to say in terms of who Jews are disloyal to. I will be exactly clear on what that was: anti-Semitism.
However, it was clear that the relationship between Trump and anti-Semites wasn't going to affect the one between...
You've been a coward regarding Palestine since you... Wait, I missed it. Where is it? You've been a coward regarding Palestine since you condemned Hamas, and you've been tried to tuck it in since then. You talk about anti-Semitism more than Palestine. Yeah, dude, you're... I talk about a variety of different issues. And of course, as a political commentator in the West, who also does care about anti-Semitism and doesn't want it to fucking rise, yes, I will definitely talk about that as well. I don't know why you think that this is a metric. I don't know why you think these two things are at odds with one another. It's very stupid. There is point to a moment where I've ever entertained rising anti-Semitism as a reason to curb back on pro-Palestinian sentiment. Having said that, you know, there's only so much I can do in terms of commentary. Maybe it doesn't fit your insane, maybe it doesn't, maybe I'm not the right person for you as far as how much I lend support to the Palestinian emancipatory movement. Perhaps I occupy a different space than one that you would like.
Between Trump and the state of Israel, and particularly with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The ADL changed its tune.
Look, I'm optimistic about the Trump administration.
A key thing to understand about the ADL is that it has always had these two aspects of its mission, the fighting anti-Semitism aspect and the defending Israel aspect, although obviously it claims that they're one and the same. But over the years, the defending Israel aspect has both increased in priority and increased in the amount in which it conflicts with and actually undermines the other part of the ADL's mission.
The ADL decided that it's not just Palestinian advocates for a free Palestine who are the enemy. They've also decided that groups like Jewish Voice for Peace is the enemy as well.
So SJP, JVP, and CARE, these groups epitomize the radical left. We'll use our litigation skills to hold them accountable for their harm.
When you have progressive Jewish organizations like Jewish Voice for Peace, and If Not Now, and many others, standing up and saying, no, Israeli war crimes do not represent the American Jewish community or the world Jewish community, and insisting on standing in solidarity with Palestinians.
If not now, we want to welcome you here.
That undermines the narrative that the ADL is pushing, and that is precisely why they make a target out of progressive Jewish organizations.
Yeah, the highest priority target is obviously always going to be someone of Arab descent, someone of Palestinian descent, someone who is Muslim, who is an anti-Zionist, especially if they are also overtly against anti-Semitism. I, on certain aspects of my commentary, fit that bill perfectly, which is why I get criticized the most, because that, and also because I have one of the biggest platforms. The second highest priority target will always be, after these organizations are done chirping about every Arab or every Palestinian, every Muslim out there, is always going to be anti-Zionist Jews. Anti-Zionist Jews are also a high priority target for these organizations. And the reason for why they're a high priority target is because it undermines the argument that this is a unified front from all American Jews, and therefore you must take it seriously. They are a marginalized population in the United States of America. And therefore, when they say our actions, the actions of Israel are done for every Jew in America, and therefore criticizing the actions of Israel is inherently anti-Semitic, that kind of shit right there is directly undermined, especially in the minds of a lot of Americans, especially in the minds of a lot of people in the Western world who just look at that and go, what the f do you mean? Okay, these are Jews that are also protesting against genocide. Because in the Western world, we're not talking about Gaza, we're not talking about Palestine, but in the Western world, which, by the way, Israel would never be able to do the horrifying things that it does without Western government support. Okay, this is also a key part of the consideration for many of you who don't understand it. Israel would not exist in the ways that it does without American support. And in order to shake the unconditional loyalty that America has for its own imperial vestige in the form of Israel's settler, colonial, apartheid, genocidal enterprise, you have to convince people to join the cause. And many Americans see Jews putting their bodies on the line here in the United States of America against Israel, and it offers them a permission structure to break through the previously explained social conditioning.
Organizations.
The ADL has declared Jewish Voice for Peace to be anti-Semitic. Jewish Voice for Peace is an organization of at least 300,000 Jews. It has now said that the Jewish Voice for Peace is not really Jewish, that it's Arab propaganda.
There was Jewish collaborators with fucking Nazis.
Ethan, don't do that, please. Don't say that the Jews' Voice for Peace are akin to capos. Like, that's...
I'm telling you that the mere existence of Jewish voices is not a leg to stand on. I don't understand that.
But
of course, there's going to be
failing.
Israeli
But the most important component here,
it's
the
like
most
you're
important component
tokenizing
here
a
is
few
that
Israelis. It seems silly.
Jewish Voice for Peace is an organization of at least 300,000 Jews.
Leftist Jews are anti-Semitic. Critics of Zionism, anti-Semitic. Pro-Palestinian symbols and chants, all anti-Semitic. In a world the ADL says is exploding with anti-Semitism, it was almost refreshing to hear the organization say what it doesn't deem anti-Semitic.
Thank you.
Elon Musk's repeated raised arm salutes, deployed just after Trump's swearing in, were taken by many as a symbol, designed to appeal to fascists and...
I can affirm your assessment is the tactic we use. Yeah, of course. It's the same principle behind Doctors Without Borders as well. It's the same principle behind World Central Kitchen as well. When you put members of the, like, citizens of the imperial core, or when you put Jews at the forefront of anti-Israel protests, yes, of course, people look at that and go, okay, what the f? Well, maybe television was lying to me about this being like a Jewish issue. Because it is a lie. That's the other side of this argument, that it is a lie. To say that this, like, everything Israel is doing is doing it for the international jury is a lie. It's ridiculous. It's an anti-Semitic lie. That's why I always yell about the dual loyalty trope being demonstrated, but in a woke way, by liberal media. Because that's what this is. It's like, no, this is dual loyalty, and you actually have to like it. Like, what?
And anti-Semites within the MAGA movement. The ADL was quick to tweet out a different interpretation, one considerably kinder to Musk.
Some context for the Musk incident, I think, is really important. Musk was at war with the ADL when he first took over Twitter. The ADL accused him of allowing anti-Semitism on Twitter, now X, to flourish.
When Elon Musk is amplifying these people, like, it's very problematic.
And the only thing that has changed since is that in an attempt to redeem his image, Elon Musk traveled to Israel, palled around with Benjamin Netanyahu, and decided to start amplifying anti-Palestinian and pro-Israel propaganda. And all of a sudden, the ADL no longer has a problem with Elon Musk.
Regardless of what the ADL's motivations were, the ADL's statement on Elon Musk's Hitler salute in many ways marks the completion of the ADL's trajectory from a civil rights organization to a willing enabler and partner in the current authoritarian anti-Semitic governing coalition. And it means that citing the ADL when we most need people to take anti-Semitism seriously is extremely reckless and irresponsible.
Yeah, I saw the Pod Johns come out against ADL. I know.